You're listening to the Deep Purple Podcast, a fan podcast about one of the most legendary bands of all time, Deep Purple. We take a look at the music, history, and people behind the band Deep Purple and beyond. Welcome to the Deep Purple Podcast, the first and only podcast devoted to one of the greatest bands in rock history, Deep Purple. Today's episode is episode number 71, Billy Cobham Spectrum. And coming to you from the sunburnt suburbs of Chicago, I'm your host, Nathan Beaudry.
And coming to you from the suburbs of Providence, your co-host, John Warwick Matola.
And coming to you from the suburbs of Nashville, Tennessee, I'm the Simple Man.
All right, that's right. We got the Simple Man with us, the host of the revered Skinnered Reconsidered podcast, one of my favorite podcasts.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Was that too soon? I threw myself in there. Hope I did that right.
No, that's perfect. You did
okay,
perfectly.
good.
That's great.
Good.
You did it better than we usually do.
I don't know about that. Yeah. Host of Simple Man, host of Skinnered Reconsidered. Did you just call it revered? That was very.
It is revered. Well, by me anyway.
By you and like 4 other people.
So for those listeners of ours that aren't familiar with it, tell us a little bit about your podcast, how it came to be. What's the story with it?
Yeah, the story is, as a child growing up in the South, Lynyrd Skynyrd was one of my favorite bands. It meant a lot to me because they were my dad's favorite band, right? And then as I grew a little bit older, became a teenager, it seemed less cool to me. I was sort of put off by a lot of the redneck fans and some of the imagery. We're not going to get political, but there were certain things about the band that I didn't like and kind of put me off. So I quit listening to for quite a while. And I guess it's been about 2 years now. About 2 years ago, around the time I was turning 40 years old, I decided it was time to revisit or reconsider this band, Lynyrd Skynyrd. And so that's what I've done. And so what it is they're brief episodes, about 20 minutes each, one song per episode. Listen to the Skynyrd song and I share my feelings on it. And I really wasn't sure going into it if I would actually enjoy the Skynyrd songs that I didn't really know, that I hadn't heard. Luckily for me, I have enjoyed the band more than I expected. It would have really sucked if I had to do 5 albums on a band I didn't like. So that hasn't happened. They've blown me away and it's been a lot of fun. And, I'm proud to be a part of the Deep Dive Podcast Network with the amazing Deep Purple Podcast, of course.
Oh, well, we're glad to be part of the same network too, as tenuous as our network is.
Changes by the day.
Yeah, exactly. It's an honor to be part of it with you. And I've got to say, I never really considered. I didn't mean to make that joke. Never really considered Lynyrd Skynyrd. Growing up as a Northerner, you're just kind of like, whatever. That's just some. You knew Sweet Home Alabama and Freebird
right.
and all that. And then, of course, listening to your podcast, the first episode, I Ain't the One, was just like, oh my God, this is a fantastic
great song.
They're a great rockin' band. And it's so easy to write off some of those songs you hear on classic rock radio played into the ground because you're just so used to them and you just kind of get tired of them.
Yeah, that's the thing is it's the same. And that's the same true of any band, I guess. It's the same songs over and over again on classic rock radio, and you do get but Skynyrd was a great band, and that's kind of what I've learned through this is that I think their reputation maybe has gotten in the way of things, and people ignore them or dismiss them when if you just listen to the music, they're actually a very cool band.
Yeah, they're a great band, and I learned a lot. I learned that there were songs by Lynyrd Skynyrd that I didn't really realize were by Lynyrd Skynyrd. Like, I've heard this one before. I didn't realize it was Skynyrd. And I've picked up those first 5 albums and listened to them all and really enjoyed them.
That's awesome. Yeah.
And a thing I love about your show is a few things that you talk a lot about the relationship with your father and kind of that, it's kind of like this, almost like this letter you're writing to your dad about about this thing that you share, and that's really touching. But also you really talk about the again, without getting political, but you talk about some of the other side effects of Lynyrd Skynyrd in a very smart way. You really have a great talk about, I think it was in Sweet Home Alabama, where you're talking about Neil Young's Alabama, and kind of juxtaposing the two. And
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And the history of George Wallace and all that. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is just, let's make fun of lyrics and talk about guitar riffs and have fun with music. But with a band like Skinner, I do think there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot that comes along with them, good and bad. And so, yeah, I don't want to ignore that. And I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, I'm doing my best. Growing up in the South, it's an interesting thing to look back on. There were times in my childhood where I was kind of ashamed to be Southern. I do think there's that stereotype of the Southern man, if you will, as Neil Young said. There were a bunch of dumb hicks. And I'm here to say today that is oftentimes the case. There are a lot of dumb hicks, but there are a lot of amazing people too. And so it's important to look at both sides, I think.
Well, as two guys that grew up in the North can tell you, there's plenty of dumb Northerners as well. So,
thank you. Yeah, being dumb is not exclusive to the South.
No.
Maybe if that's the only thing anyone gets from the podcast, I hope
they don't have a lock on it yet. But another thing about your show is it's extremely funny. Very.
Thank you.
The comedic elements you put in the show are great, and I got turned on to your show from Rye at Sabbath Bloody Podcast, and the first episode, hearing you doing one of your great advertisements in the beginning of the show, and I was immediately hooked. I said, okay, this guy, probably first few seconds thinking, is this a real ad?
Yeah.
And then, quickly realizing what you're onto, and just your delivery and everything is great. And I just love what you do. And every time a new episode posts, I'm always excited to give it a listen.
Thanks, man. Yeah, we have some great sponsors. But yeah, I try to be funny from time to time. I'm a failed comedian, I guess, in some ways. So this is a great outlet for me. It's my two favorite things are music and comedy. So, other than my family, I have to say that, right?
They might be listening, so you better say that. Yeah.
They might listen to it. Other than that, it's music and comedy. So that's what I try to do with this thing. And it's been so much more fun than I ever anticipated.
All right. Awesome. Well, so John, before I forget, you mentioned the Warwick Mall, and I think there's been a few episodes here where you've dropped something in and we've never followed up on.
Yeah, I want to get back to that.
It's usually when we have a guest. It's like, this is John something, and you're like, yeah, okay, anyway, and here's our guest. And then we never ask me about it. You're like, yeah, up yours. We don't want to hear it.
So I know the Warwick Mall, but why do you bring it up?
Because Warwick is known as the retail capital of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
For some reason or another, probably because we have two malls there.
Two malls.
Well, Rhode Island Mall.
What's the percentage of malls in Rhode Island that are in Warwick? Probably like 50%, right?
Well, yeah, because you have. Well, Warwick. They're not really. Who even knows what they are anymore? But I mean, the
Warwick
Rhode Island
Mall and Rhode Island Mall.
Rhode Island Mall and Warwick Mall are like basically like right next to each other. Like, I mean, if it wasn't for the highway, you could well, not really a highway, but I mean, for the main road, you could walk to each one.
Why the hell do you need a mall right next to another mall? Like, what?
I don't know. Why down the street do we need a 3-floor Strawberries music store, which is now a Men's Warehouse, by the way?
Oh, there you go.
And why do we need a 3-story Men's Warehouse now that we're on this?
So what's the
retail? Fair question.
Why do we? One story seems to be sufficient.
Yeah, I drove by it the other day, and you were talking about when it was a Strawberries, and I looked, and I was like, did that typical Rhode Island thing. This is like, that's where this used to be. And
well, and then looking back behind me, the Tommy Bolin box set brings us to our episode today, which is I got it that Strawberries. And
that's why we were talking about
my first impressions of this album came from that. So
yeah, mine too. Cool. I can't remember where I bought it. I probably bought it at the same one, but well, the other mall in Rhode Island is kind of across the street from my my dwelling, or in the area of my dwelling, which is not really. It was like the Lincoln Mall, which was,
Can you even still go inside that mall, or is it?
You can, but like I think three of the stores are still open, and I think they finally closed down. I think the Papa Gino's was open until last year. I think it might still be open.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. That's a weird mall, because it's like a mall that you used to go into, and then you could kind of go into it, but then stuff started cropping up around the mall, and then the mall just kind of died. But now they have all these stores kind of around it, like the shell. Very
You can, yeah, you can,
less
yeah.
depressing now than it used to be, but
Well, I mean, it was the one-story mall that went like, just kind of the endless maze, one floor, whatever, was huge. And now it's still there, but I think most of it's sectioned off, and other buildings are like you have to get through the entrance the other way. And now it's like it's an outdoor what do you call it? Not really a strip mall, but the area is definitely populated with a lot of stores, but it's not what it used to be. But it's definitely, or was, before March, more bustling. Still kind of is, actually, because there's a supermarket there, like, a ton of stuff. And then I think that's it. And then the next mall is the Emerald Mall, but that's right over the border in Mass. So,
yeah, that doesn't count.
which, no, it doesn't.
Wasn't it like the biggest mall on the East Coast at one point when they built it?
Yeah, I
Something
remember
like
when
that.
they built it, they were like, it was like the biggest 3-story mall. And there was this like rumor when we were kids that it was like they built it on a swamp and it was sinking.
That was started by the Lincoln Mall. You'd
Because
go in
it
there
cut
like
right into its business.
you
Yeah.
go in there with your friends. You like see that crack in the floor? It's because it was built on a swamp. It's sinking into the swamp. I forgot about that.
I remember the radio ads. They had like they had the Wizard of Oz thing when they had like they heard the clicking of heels and like the Dorothy voice and just there's no place like the Emerald Mall, and they're just like, oh, for all your shopping needs. And I'm like, oh Jesus.
Well, that was your Rhode Island retail minute. I'm sure our guests are always captivated by this.
I loved it. I enjoyed every minute.
Yeah,
Like the Lincoln Mall, the Lincoln Mall guarantee. Our malls do not sink into the ground.
Exactly. If you want to
That's
go to that
effective
newfangled,
advertising.
yeah, that newfangled swamp mall, you want to take your chances, but
Yeah.
you may fall into the earth and be eaten by alligators.
Right.
Oh,
Best of
well,
luck.
I can't forget the Providence Place Mall. I forgot about that one.
Oh yeah, that's a fancy place though. I
Right.
catered the opening of that mall. Yep. It was
I've just that thing's
absolute
like
nightmare.
I bet. I don't even, because that mall was a nightmare. It's like, pay to park, never mind, I ain't going.
Unacceptable.
They had like people living in the parking garage or whatever.
The parking garage, they had hollowed out like a wall and found like some like art students living in there for like a year. They had like a whole apartment set up.
Yeah, people
I kind of like that actually.
the people getting attacked in there and stuff. It was just like,
Ugh.
it's supposed to be a high-end mall too. I mean, God even knows what it is now, because I think
it had carpeted floors. I mean, it doesn't get any more high end than that.
No, those sparkly things hanging from the the ceiling, the skylights.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't really a chandelier. They were like string lights or whatever. But I don't know. Maybe it was only during Christmas. All I know is I was watching something on the news last night about somebody predicting how is this the end of the shopping mall as we know it? And I said out loud to the TV, yes, because I buy everything off Amazon and I'm not stopping.
Well,
the malls have been going down for a while. This might be the final.
Yeah, this is.
Blow.
I mean, who goes to a
Plus,
mall? I mean,
plus I'm old and I don't like the mall.
I think that's fair.
I took my kids there to a mall around here. Must have been like a day off of school in like January, and they were just the first time in a mall. They were just like, "Oh my God, what is this?"
Do they like it?
It's they loved it because it's a new concept for them. But
My kids do love it. And it's kind of nice because it's one of the few retail locations we can go where they don't even have to buy anything to be happy. Just like walking around the mall and seeing all the stuff. That's enough for them.
That's true.
So, hey, that's a 1+ for the mall.
Exactly. Well, on that note, we should probably thank our supporters before this goes completely off the rails. And we want to thank our patrons and PayPal Ians, whatever their names are. But coming in at the $25 Super Trooper tier, we have Steve Seaborg of NameOnAnything.com and AllTheWorldToStage.net coming in hot off of PayPal. The $20 Shades of Deep Pockets tier, we have Ryan M. At the $15 Highball Shooter tier, it has been vacated, so you could join that tier now if you want. The Turn It Up to $11 tier, Alan Ain't Too Proud to Beg. At the $10 No One Came tier, still no one on that tier, so please join.
Come on, people.
Come on, people. At the $5 Money Lender tier, we have Clay Wambacher, Greg Sealby, Frank Thielgard Mortensen, Mike Knowles, and John Convery. At the $3 Nobody's Perfect tier, Peter Gardot, Ian DeRosier, Mark Roback, and Anton Glaving. And at the $1 Made Up Name tier, Els Murder, Spacey Noodles, The Unnerving Leaky Mausoleum, and Michael Veda.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Can I just say that is my favorite tier, just for the names
I know.
alone.
Such
Maybe
great
not your
names.
best revenue stream, but definitely the greatest
Exactly.
names.
I mean, it could be if we've got like 400 or 500 more people in it.
Well, there you go.
I mean, that'd be perfect.
I'm surprised we don't have more. I think people would like to make up some more names.
Yeah, come on. If you
It only
just
costs you
heard
$1.
that
Yeah.
hard-hitting commentary on the malls of Rhode Island, and I mean, what else? What other podcast is going to these places? You really should join at the $1 tier at the very least.
That's fair.
I think so. And then thanks to our brothers at the Deep Dive Podcast Network, Riot Sabbath Bloody Podcast, the Simple Man right here in person this time.
Hey.
And Terry T-Bone Mathley, T-Bone's Prime Cuts, the chairman. Thank you so much. And then, of course, Jorg Planer, our essential Twitter follow. We thank Jorg so much for all of his continued support. All right, so this week we are getting into Billy Cobham's Spectrum album, of course, covering that because Tommy Bolin, right behind me there, was on this album, and it's a huge part of his legacy, and something that's credited as getting him into Deep Purple, with David Coverdale saying he had heard Tommy on this album and was just blown away. And when they were throwing out names for guitarists, his name came up, and of course they snatched him up, and we're in a very brief but very exciting period, Deep Purple, with Tommy Bolin. So this is coming in a couple years before he joined that band. And so I guess we'll take it with you, Simple Man. What's your background with this album? Because we were chatting back and forth about it, and I've noticed posts over the past where this album comes up, and you always have something to say. So where did you first get into it?
Yeah. So first of all, I have to be honest. I'm not an expert. I wouldn't call myself an expert. And I've noticed you guys have been, well, I'm great company, but I've noticed you guys are landing some amazing guests lately. And so in walks this scrub. He barely knows what he's talking about, but I am happy to be here. And for me, okay, so I haven't listened to the album in a long time, but it was in high school for me that I fell in love with this album. So in addition to being a failed comedian, I'm a failed drummer. There's clearly a pattern that we're establishing here. But yeah, I'm an okay drummer. I play for fun, and I started playing in high school. And I think the natural journey for the drummer is, you get into John Bonham, right? And then Neil Peart. And then maybe you get into get real nerdy and get into, for me, it was guys like Terry Bozzio and Vinnie Colaiuta with Zappa, and Billy Cobham, and some of the older jazz guys, and then some of the fusion rock guys. So somehow I stumbled upon this album, and I loved it. It was cool because I picked up some solo drummer albums at the time, and those could be really lame. I mean, if you think about solo albums for drummers, there aren't that many great ones, right? Mm-hmm. I think there's a reason why drummers aren't usually the front men. Mm-hmm. But you might have an amazing drummer, and technically it's great, but it's a really cheesy solo drummer album.
Yeah, it's just like it's like a lot of those 80s and 90s shred albums for guitar players. It's just an excuse. Here, I'm going to play 2 chords, and you just show off over it. And the same thing with drummers. Yeah,
it's just real showy and technically impressive, but no one actually wants to listen to it. But when I heard this, in addition to being able to listen to an amazing drummer, it actually sounded like a band to me. And yeah, I kind of fell in love with it at the time.
Yep, that's awesome. John, what's your background with the album? What's your memories of it?
Well, I first got into it from either, at this point, as we've established, I don't know if I got the Deep Purple Family album first or the Tommy Bolin box set. My guess is I probably got the Family album CD first. And that one, as we probably talked about on our last show, had a whole smattering of Deep Purple family related songs. And I'm pretty sure that one was on it. If not, then it was on the Tommy Bolin box set. And, that was one of my favorites because it was just kind of, it was pretty wild. I mean, that the song on there from the Billy Cobham album was just like, what is this that's happening right now? This doesn't even sound like a guitar. Like, this is crazy. Like,
well, it's got to be weird too, hearing tracks like Hush and Smoke on the Water and the standard fare, and then all of a sudden come up with this jazz fusion song. Like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. So, I mean, I like, that's one of the things that always made me think that Tommy was kind of an underrated guitar player, a forgotten guitar player, because it's like, yeah, he did these kind of, uh, made these kind of sounds with his guitar, had these effects, and it was just like you hear anybody else using them, or at least the way that he used them. So I always thought that that song, it was a quadrant 4, right?
Mambo number 5.
I called it Mambo number 5 before this. I wasn't
Same
gonna make the
thing.
joke again because I wasn't gonna because I didn't know if it would be funny. But yeah, Mambo number 4. Um, yeah, quadrant 4. I thought was like really just wild. It was outstanding. And then, like I had mentioned before the show, I think that I have tried to. I don't have any. Of course, me with my brilliant memory, I probably could have listened to the whole album, but my recollection is I did not listen or have not ever listened to the whole album all the way through, because typical me when I was like younger was just like, every song doesn't sound like this one. I don't like it. And then I just turned it off and dismissed the rest of it, being like an idiot. So
I know we've listened to it together, but it was one of those things where it was probably like hanging out. It was on in the background.
maybe in the background. Yeah.
Yeah.
But as far as something as Simple Man said that kind of made me think about drummer solo albums, I feel there is one exception that made me think about drummer solo albums that weren't trying to be flashy or like really technical or anything, was the 1978 Peter Criss solo album.
Oh yeah,
Very true.
Because Peter was never really a technical drummer. He was never really going for that whole drummer's drummer thing. So he really did a lot of his Motown inspired and like old kind of rock songs that he grew up with. So for him, it was more about the songs. And that one is a lot of people are divided on that album, because there are some people that can't stand it because it's nothing like Kiss. And then there are people like me that really enjoy it because, for what it is, it's pretty great.
I love it. It's an R&B infused. It's got horns. I mean, it's got all the stuff that I really like. And
yeah,
I think to that point too, you could go with like Ringo's first solo album too. He's got all the Beatles are on that album in various places, and it's, again, Ringo's not a showboat drummer by any means, but he's rock solid, and it's all about the songwriting, not about showing off like paradiddles or whatever.
Yeah,
there you go.
That's all. I knew you guys could help me out because I've been racking my brain trying to think of some good examples, and there's 2 right there.
There you go.
And listeners, can I address the listeners, or is that only your job? I know,
no,
I'm just like,
please.
Listeners, write in.
We hardly ever address listeners because we don't actually still believe they're real.
I know they are for your show. That's why I'm so excited to talk to them. Someone's listening for once. Listeners, please write in. Let us know the other great
please
solo drummer albums, because I really am interested.
Oh yeah, that's
drawing a blank.
Well, an interesting counterpart to this album is, of course, the Alphonse Mouzon album, which is another super technical jazz fusion drummer who teamed up with Tommy Bolin and did an album that I think is a great companion to this album. If you like this album, definitely check that one out. And the rest of Billy Cobham's stuff is pretty incredible too.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess we'll find out. I mean, we'll see if it's if it's in my or our wheelhouse right now, because as we found out, I like listening critically to these albums, I've come to like and appreciate things that I was like, oh wow, I didn't think that I'd like this that much or whatever. But jazz or fusion, that stuff never really interested me. And I guess its purest form, like if you had like a jazz or you know what I mean? Like if you had a jazz drummer or like a blues inspired guitar player or like John Lord classical background dabbling in rock music, it was cool. But if you were just like completely in that genre, it wasn't really one of my favorites. You know what I mean? Like it was like full on jazz or full on fusion. It was kind of lost me. I've never been a big jazz guy, but
I'm kind of like you, John. I mean, I think, when I was in high school and college days, I think that I really wanted to like jazz and fusion music because it seemed cool.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy it. I enjoyed this album and some others, but generally speaking, I like a song. Also, I'm kind of a lyrics guy. So, the jazz stuff, I can appreciate it, but it's not necessarily what I'm going to be throwing on the old record player most of the time. I think is the comedian Paul F. Tompkins. I think he has a bit about how jazz music basically dares you to not like it. And that's kind of true. I mean, it can test your patience depending on, your speed. But yeah, I appreciate it more than I enjoy it
Yeah, I
these
it's
days anyway.
Yeah,
to
yeah,
me,
that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
I love jazz, but I'm very selective. I like very select albums that I really like, and I'm sure there's tons of other stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that just goes way too far that places that I can't go. But I always to me it's more of like a background sort of thing. I don't usually just sit there and just listen to it.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
In fact, I don't really do that to anything other than on this show.
You're a busy man.
Well, it's like jazz. I'd be like in a bar somewhere, like getting drunk with somebody, and in the background you hear like, you know, be a very high class.
That's more like
bar,
20s or 30s jazz that you're doing.
Yeah, back in the days of Prohibition when John would hang out in the bars.
I actually went to go see one of the shows I remember the most vividly is me and John went to go see the Squirrel Nut Zippers.
Oh, Jesus.
And John was so pissed because there are all these people dressed in like these double-breasted suits doing. He's like, he's like, I just remember you got so pissed. He's like, that asshole doing the Charleston just hit me in the head.
Yeah, it's too much. I get that. It's too much.
It was a great show, though. I gotta say.
Oh, that's funny because what was that like? That was the resurgence of swing, right? So was that like
it would have been
90s?
96, 97, something.
And
like
I remember the venue where it was at. I recently last November went back to it for the first time because it was my cousin's wedding reception was there, and I walked in. I'm like, yeah, this place looks the same.
It was Rhodes at the Patuxent, right?
Yeah,
Rhodes on the
yeah,
Patuxent.
it was a really, but I remember that. I was just like, I was pissed because we're like, yeah, we're going to go, see this, it was cool at the time. I was getting into it, but then all these people were like way into it, like these friggin' cosplay, 20s people. And they were like, and they were like swinging their fists around. And they were like, they were like drop kicking people. And it's like, gee, it's a personal space for Christ's sake. It's like, my God.
I've thought about that a lot lately. And, part of it is the Skinner thing where the fans kind of ruined it for me. But that is not just Skinner. There are many bands where I would enjoy the music a lot more without the association of the fans.
Oh my goodness!
Having to be around them in an environment where they're so close.
I mean, let's talk about rock fans, right? I mean, I've had many a piece of clothing ruined by like cigarette burns, vomit, alcohol, whatever.
Beer spilled on you.
Terrible.
Yeah, and like going to any like metal shows, like the mosh pit, like so I couldn't get far enough away from that. Like
me too.
Beyond no interest in being involved in a mosh pit.
No.
Does not sound fun.
No.
And Nate used to look like somebody that would be involved.
Oh
in a
yeah,
mosh
like
pit,
if you saw me in high school, Bill, like, you would just start moshing when you saw me, and you'd think that I'd be all about it, but I was not all about it.
I would like to see that at least an old photo.
We can. We have one coming up on the episode we just recorded. We have one, but we can certainly show you after the show if you'd want to check it out.
I'll stick around for that.
But Nate, you could have still back then as now couldn't find a more gentle, non-confrontational person.
Well, thank you so much.
Believe that.
Well, really, especially when I used to get really confrontational and like upset with you, and you would just be like, you just sit there and you wouldn't let it bug you. You just let me go rant and rave and get all Italian and everything, and you just be like, what's the matter with this guy?
Yeah, John has been a 65-year-old man the entire time I've known him.
I like 65-year-old men. Nothing wrong with that.
An old curmudgeon, and you just like never let it bug you. You just be like, nah.
Yeah,
and that would get me even more mad.
Right. Yeah, there was somebody the other day on Twitter that I thought was rude to you, Nate, and it bothered me enough to where I had to respond. I couldn't help it. And you, of course, let it go like a mature adult.
Yeah.
So I hopefully I learned a lesson from you that day, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I've decided if anyone's gonna get upset about a Deep Purple podcast, not even gonna engage in any way. If you want to tell me like why I'm wrong about why The Mule is a good song and not a bad song, I'll talk to you all day about it. But if you're gonna be like, hey, you're a jerk, whatever.
You're exactly right, but sometimes I just can't let it go. And then the next day I regret it. I'm just like, what am I doing? Arguing with people on the internet.
I know it's
never
hard,
the right thing.
Hard to resist. That's why I got rid of my original personal Facebook page, and I don't really have one anymore because I just didn't want to be involved in that.
Yeah.
Anyway, getting into this album, we've got a lineup of just 4 incredible musicians, starting off with the legendary Leland Sklar on bass. And on the album, he's credited as electric bass, Fender bass. I love when they say the Fender bass. You have to clarify that it's a Fender. He's credited on the album as Lee Sklar. And if you don't know who this guy is by hearing his name, I guarantee you've heard at least 50 to 100 of songs that he's played on the radio. He's played with everyone: Linda Ronstadt, Phil Collins, Hall & Oates, Jackson Browne. He actually played on a few tracks by the Doors, which I thought was interesting because the Doors never had a bass player. So I guess, and a few songs they wanted bass, and no one else wanted to do it, so they got this guy.
That's fair.
If you're a Doors expert, then you can tell me all the things I got wrong about that, but I know nothing about the Doors. So yeah, he's a legend, and he's recently started a YouTube channel in the midst of all this quarantine and everything. He's just at home, and he'll just bust out a song and play along to it on his bass and tell you all about the making of the song and what he liked about it. He's got actually, what song is it that he does from this album? It might be Spectrum, or it might be the Red Stratus. I think he did Stratus. On his YouTube channel. It's great. So if you just want to watch this guy, and he brought out the original bass that he played it on the album, which is a bass that he had carved. Should have had a picture of it, but he carved into the bass and carved all these really intricate carvings. It looks beautiful. And he brought out that original bass he played on this album and played along to it. And he said from carving out all the stuff on the wood and the bass, he made the bass kind of like off center. So now when you hold it with a strap, the neck just kind of goes to the ground because there's not enough weight on the body of the guitar. Something he wasn't really thinking about when he did the carving, but it says like peace on it, and there's like a peace sign. It's very like, hippy dippy sort of stuff. It's really cool. And if you see him, if you see him, you've probably seen him before. He's just giant gray beard, like down to his lap, and gray hair. And he's extremely political, and extremely, he doesn't watch his language very much. So keep that in mind if you're going to watch his channel, but it's really amazing stuff. On electric piano synthesizer, we've got Jan Hammer, who I think I'm pronouncing the name correctly. He worked with Santana, Jeff Beck, Stanley Clarke, the Mahavishnu Orchestra, which is probably where he linked up with Billy Cobham eventually. He was on Tommy Bolin's Teaser album, which we covered a while back. And probably the most prominent thing that he did, even though he had an incredible career with all these great acts, was doing the theme song and the soundtrack for Miami Vice, which is really interesting. And he's got that great like 80s synth sound on it, which you're not going to hear today. But he's a great synth player, really great style to him. On guitar, of course, Tommy Bolin. If you want to know more about Tommy Bolin, then you can check out our earlier episodes where we kind of go through his career and talk about his time with Deep Purple. Lots of information out there. And then, of course, on percussion, Billy Cobham. It's his album. And he's somebody who had played with Miles Davis, Stanley Clarke. He also went on to play with like Peter Gabriel and George Duke. And James Brown, actually. He played at least a couple of tracks with James Brown on the album There It Is. But I tried to look up the album There It Is, and it's one of those things where it's just credited to James Brown, and I don't think he even credited the musicians at all. So, James Brown, I think, was from what I hear, a pretty tough, a tough guy. You'd find the band members when they missed a note or whatever. Yeah. After the show, he'd just have this mental tally, be like, the second verse of this song, you missed a note, so you're getting docked $50 pay or whatever it was. Wow. So yeah, you had to be good to play with James Brown.
Yeah.
I
didn't know that Billy ever played with him. That's cool.
Yeah, and from what I can tell, it was at the best a couple of tracks, but it might have been that whole album. I want to seek that album out now. It's one of the songs called King Heroin is on a compilation album I have, but I want to check out the original album, which is called There It Is, because it's a James Brown album, so it's going to be good.
Yep, agree.
And then everything is written and produced by William E. Cobham Jr. That's Billy Cobham, of course. yeah, that's the rundown. It's very
Wow.
simple instrumentation, just those four guys.
I did not realize that was just for people.
Yeah.
I think that without ever digging into the album, I always, I don't know, was under the impression that there was like 27 guest musicians on it or one of those
Yeah.
albums. But I'm surprised to hear it's so kind of stripped down. And Tommy's on the only guitar player on the whole album.
Yes.
Wow. All right, cool.
Pretty great. And that takes us to the album art. And I don't know, what do you guys think about this album art here?
I think it's cool. I always liked it because I mean it's simple and it's colorful. Like I always had a thing for like that kind of you know, prism, rainbow colors, you know, type of thing. So this is just kind of striking because you just have the black background and then you have that kind of like, I guess like pixelated, you know, colors in it, and it's just I don't know, it just seems really cool and appropriate.
Yeah, I like it too. I always did. It's pretty simple, like you said. It's not as cheesy and silly as some of those album covers could get around that time. Looks like it could be like some type of vision test. If you go to the eye doctor, he might show you this and ask you to identify the colors. I like the font. Yeah, works for me.
Yeah, it's like if that's a if there's a sans serif font, what is this, like extra serif? It's like really heavy on the serif.
Fancy pants serif.
Fancy pants serif.
I think works.
To me, it looks like when they have those kind of fuzzy images taken by a telescope and they zoom in, it's like this is like the galaxy M33 or something viewed through this telescope. It looks like you're kind of zooming in on it. But
Yeah, you're right.
I love simple album covers like this, and I think this is a great one. It was designed by Stanislaw Zagorski, a Polish graphic artist who worked with he did a number of album covers, a lot of jazz bands in the 60s. Not any things I was really super
I
familiar
love
with.
that guy. He's great.
He does great work.
Never heard of him.
Jeff Snyder did the painting part of it. So I guess he painted, like, that's the guy who designed it. Jeff Snyder did this painting. He was actually a Canadian musician and artist. I only had a few other entries I could find. And then when we get into the album here, there's some photography. So this is the backside of the album. Awesome. Billy Cobham superimposed over a picture of Billy Cobham.
How great is that?
That's pretty wild.
I love it.
I wish I had that level of confidence of a jazz fusion drummer from the 70s.
I can barely stand to look at one version of me as we record this. And this guy.
Now that picture is more indicative of like the time.
Mm-hmm.
That looks like something you'd see on a 70s album, but it's really it's cool looking. It's dated, but not in a negative way. Like you look at it and you're like, yeah, that looks like it's from the 70s. But it's like really badass cool.
So if you open the album, that's what you're looking at. On the inside of the album, inside of the gatefold on the left, you've got the Billy Cobham Spectrum. It's just like the left half of Billy Cobham's kit gives you all the incidentals on the album, and then it says at the bottom, I guess trying to be deep, it says, "What is life but a spectrum, and what is music but life itself?" Billy Cobham Jr. So
Wow.
I love.
Real thinker.
I know, right? You know, gotta spend the rest of the episode pondering that one.
I kind of like that.
Yeah,
I like the quote and like the simple the drums off to the side. Like it feels like this is what is the back of or the inside of like a jazz album, fusion album should be. It's kind of like that off center picture of like a drum kit, and then just like, you know, your simple font and like song listing and everything off to the side, like really clean, simple, kind of I don't know, almost classy looking, you know, like looks like it has some I don't know, some credibility behind it.
Yep,
You know, it's
not
none of it's dumb looking, you know what I mean? It's not like this stupid painting or, you know, ridiculous
stupid painting.
ridiculous art.
Yeah, it looks cool, classy. Yeah, you're right.
And then the other side of the gatefold, you got Billy over there playing the drums.
Yeah.
And so that would be the whole gatefold right there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that's badass. I love it.
The record there, just simple Atlantic green, white, and red sort of album thing with the track listing. This is kind of one of those albums or the track listing is a little confusing. It's got like track 1 and then track 2A and 2B and then 3A and 3B, and it just kind of makes you wonder why are these. So it's like they're the same song, but they're separating them up, and usually it ends up being a short intro or outro that's kind of instrumental with only a few members of the band, and then the main part of the song ends up going into that. So I figure for the purposes of this episode, we'll just review them as, 2A and B being one song.
So we kind of have a Captain Beyond kind of situation going on with these, huh?
Yeah, it's like a Captain Beyond or like first Black Sabbath album, because what are there, only like 5 tracks on that album, but they're all like, 3 tracks
names.
to one, and yeah, all these different things. Luke's Wall, it's like, what's that one? I can never remember what they are until I hear them. Yeah, and the photography was done by Armin Kachurian and Hervé Cusick, who did some work for Billy Cobham, Mingus, Miles Davis, Chicago, and Earth, Wind, and Fire. So there you go.
Not bad.
Simple, great, effective album art. And it was engineered by Ken Scott, who did work for a few bands you may have heard of, including the Beatles, Elton John, and Pink Floyd. And it was recorded at Electric Lady Studios.
Oh,
there you go. Shortly after Hendrix had wrapped up there. And there's so there's some extra personnel listed, actually. So those are the main guys. So you were right, actually. There's some flute and soprano sax by Joe Farrell. Jimmy Powers does the flugelhorn, and on the song Spectrum, and John Tropia on guitar. Okay, so I'm sorry, I was wrong. John Tropia does guitar on this. And then it's one of those ones where they credit Jan Hammer as doing electric piano and synthesizer. They have to get all those keyed instruments in there. And then Ron Carter on acoustic bass, and Ray Borello on congas. So there you go. I was completely wrong when I said that earlier. So,
all right. But the core musicians are 4.
Yes. Yep. The core band remains the same.
Yeah, I think there's only 1 or 2 songs that I don't think Tommy Bolin plays on. One or 2.
According to this, and I think they might have been like those short little interlude songs.
Could be.
Because it says here Tommy Bolin is on. He's on A1, A2B, A3B, B1, and B3B. So there's
I don't
probably
remember any of that.
That's confusing.
Yeah,
they shouldn't have done that. I don't like how all this A and B. Let's not bring those letters
confusing.
into it.
So we ready to get into these tracks?
Yeah.
We're going to start with quadrant 4, and it starts with a real bang. So one thing that I think is really interesting is when David Coverdale talked about the album, he said he loved Tommy Bolin's playing and he really wanted to consider him for Deep Purple. But then he admitted later on that half of the things he thought Tommy Bolin was playing, Jan Hammer was actually playing. Because if you listen to this, a lot of the keyboards and stuff, you've got to listen closely and note that this starts with like a roaring like keyboard solo, basically. And I, for the longest time, just thought that was Tommy doing something barely comprehensible on the guitar, like something that wouldn't really translate. And it wasn't until much later that I learned, like, oh, that was actually a synth, which makes a little bit more sense. So here we go, kicking right into quadrant 4. I think he's using so much of the pitch shift wheel that it sounds like they're doing bends on the guitar.
Yeah, I thought it was guitar.
Yeah, I figured it was a really wacky guitar tone.
This sounds like Hot for Teacher, right?
Oh yeah, it does.
Like
jazz version.
Yeah.
Well, and Cobham played a double bass, so yeah. Kind of.
Good call.
I wonder if they were inspired by this.
Hey, it sounds a lot like it.
We'll have to ask Greg Renoff if he knows. And at this point, there's no backing band. It's just the drums and the keyboards going absolutely crazy together.
Crazy. Yeah, this is wild.
the guitar kind of coming in the right channel there.
There's a really catchy little melody here. That's why I always like this song, I think.
And the whole album, it, like we said earlier, it's not focusing on just the drums. It's really so much melody in the songs.
Right.
Now here's Tommy. Must be the echoplex there.
We pointed out too around this time, he was still really young, right?
I mean, yeah, he died at 25, so how old could he
He was like 22?
22, 23 when he did this, was the oldest.
Unbelievable, huh?
He's playing like a grizzled old veteran.
I love that. Whose guitar does that?
I don't even know what he's doing to get that sound. And Billy Cobham himself would have been under 30 at this point.
And he was going wild. Like, you can hear him like really like wailing away back there, Billy Cobham, but it's not distracting.
It kind of reminds me of like Ian Paice on the song Burn. Like he's going nuts the entire time, but it doesn't, yeah, it's not distracting, like you said.
But you just feel like the urgency of, and like the power of all these players. Like the energy.
Bring it back to the melody.
Yeah.
Love it.
I was like, man, how does this dude make his guitar sound like a laser beam? Whoa.
I love it. Even that ending sounded like Hot for Teacher to me.
Yeah, that's a really good
You guys heard that song. I love this, though. You're right. There's so much impressive musicianship, but it still actually sounds cool. Everyone is serving the song. This is why I loved this album back in the day.
Yeah, it's just it's such a powerful way to open an album. Just putting it out there. It's like, yep, this is how we're opening our album. Like, how do you? I don't know. I just picture like if this was a band playing live and you didn't know what you were expecting, to be following this band or something after that and just be shaking. Like, what am I going to do?
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't want to be the people following them after this.
Yeah, definitely get your attention. That opener, I love it.
Yeah, great opener.
All right, you want to go first, John?
Yeah. So I'll hand out a 5 to this one because, you know, obviously I was just saying earlier, one of my I don't know, the favorite song off of this album that I hardly ever heard, but no, standout Tommy Bolin track, and probably like one of my favorite instrumentals and solos that he did, because you know that when he goes like rip shit on a solo, I love it. So I mean, this was one of them where he was just like going wild, and you know, you had Billy Cobham in the back just like slamming away on the drums and keeping the beat, and you know, now the whole Hot for Teacher thing kind of put a new perspective on it for me too. So that's pretty cool. But I always loved this, and it was like, it wasn't long either. That's the other thing too, is like it got the point across. It wasn't this long drawn out, you know, it's like stayed too long at the party type of instrumental. So love it.
Yeah, just a little over 4 minutes. I agree.
Really?
I think Tommy is someone who has so much passion in his playing and does it always seems to do what's right for the song. But like you said, when he wants to cut loose and just go crazy, he does. But it's not that. I hate to
It's
say it,
not
but that,
showy.
yeah, it's not that showy, boring shred that we've been subjected to for the last 30 years from various guitar players. It's always he can almost like lose control, but it's so filled with passion. It's just an amazing player. I am also going to have to give this one a 5. This is our first. I think it's our first only instrumental album, right, that we've ever reviewed.
I think so, right? Because there's no vocals on it. Yeah.
Nope. Nothing.
That's what makes it instrumental.
Nailed it.
You picked up on that.
Nailed it. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty wild. That, I mean, it's like Tommy ripping and doing like something that would be akin to like a shred guitar player is him using the echoplex and like holding one note and then making it sound like somebody shooting a bunch of laser beams, like and not sounding like dumb, you know?
Right.
Like who does that? That's
incredible.
So cool.
All right, Mr. Simple Man, what do you think?
My turn. If I remember correctly, which I may not, I do think this is my favorite song on the album. John, I think you nailed it when you said it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's never dull for a moment. I'm going to give it a 5.
Wow.
5s across the board.
I think that's our
perfect score.
First 5s across the board from with the guest host. Wow. This is
history.
We're making Deep Purple podcast history right here.
Yeah, if this was like one of those like swim meets, you'd be like 5. Everybody be like 5, holding the thing up.
Yeah.
They dropped the lowest score though. All right, so
it's gonna be hard to follow that, like you said about other bands. We're gonna have to follow that now. They're gonna have to follow that.
They're gonna have to follow themselves. I mean, they set themselves up for a challenging follow-up. So the next one is 2A is Searching for the Right Door, and 2B is Spectrum. So here we go.
And we're doing all these together, right?
Yeah, we're just gonna play them together. And I think this is just kind of like a little. I think that's why they did this, because these little intros are a little weird. Just sounds like they're kind of warming up in the studio. Or like a false start or something. Searching for the right beat.
Found it.
It's pretty good. A lot of great dynamics in what he's doing there.
Love me some China Boy.
Oh, yeah. And he's got quite a kit, so there's no shortage of toms there. I think that's it, right? I'll go into the next song here. Oh yeah, this is a great song melodically.
Yeah, this is definitely more, if I think of a jazz album from the 70s, this is what I would think of.
Oh, that bass too.
He's got a really busy like drum beat going on in the background there, but it's not really distracting because it's got a good melody going on.
Yeah, something that could be so easily ruined if someone was just going back and forth between 2 chords.
But it could also be less interesting if somebody was just, I don't know, doing a basic drum beat.
So there's Jan Hammer again.
You know, this kind of makes me think of like some early Steve Vai.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just little bits and pieces of it. Like there was a part there before, like it sounded like something off like one of his early albums, like solo albums. But I mean, then again, he's another one, a virtuoso who probably pulls from many different styles.
Yeah, we talk about the pretentious guitar thing of guitar players saying like, I only listen to jazz. Like Steve Vai is one of those guys who probably did listen to a hell of a lot of jazz to inform his playing, but he probably never brags about it.
No.
It's Jimmy Owens on the flugelhorn. Which,
he makes flugelhorn.
oh no, that must be a sax. That must be Joe Farrell on the sax. From what I can tell, a flugelhorn is just basically a trumpet, but I'm sure there's some slight difference.
No guitar in this one, huh?
This one might be one of the ones that Tommy Bolin sat out on. No, he's on this one.
Oh.
So he might maybe saving the best for last year.
All right, we got time.
Yep, you got a couple more minutes left in the song. This is the flugelhorn, if I've ever heard one.
Classic flugelhorn.
Classic flugelhorn.
I don't know. Have I ever heard one? Is it?
Well, you have.
I don't know.
Now.
I know if I'm listening to it.
Yeah, I may have. I didn't know it, but
It's really good. It's got a nice tone to it, actually.
I mean, I'm looking at a picture of flugelhorn. Looks a hell of a lot like a trumpet to me. I used to play the trumpet. It resembles a trumpet. Okay. But it's a wider. It has the same length, but a wider conical bore. Oh, of course. I should have noticed that.
I wonder how you decide. You know, your side. No. For me.
Yeah, I'm going with the flugelhorn. Or there's also the cornet, and then there's the trumpet that goes up instead of going straight. You know the one? It looks like just like a trumpet, but instead of the horn going straight, it goes up.
Oh yeah, what is that?
It's probably just like a bent trumpet.
Is that the technical name for it?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
How about a bullhorn?
I think that one's different. There's the cornet, too. There's a lot of them.
Oh no, a bullhorn is what like policemen used to. They yell at rioters, right?
There you go. I mean, I'm not hearing Tommy on this, but
If he's doing anything, it's like buried way in the background. He didn't. I don't think he took any solos.
you can hear like almost like people talking in the background there.
That's Tommy.
It was,
We found him.
That's how he was on the track.
he was playing cards with somebody while the track was going on.
Tommy Bolin, cards.
All right. So, John,
I just want to say that I lost you guys for a minute. So if someone asked me a question and I didn't answer, I was not trying to be rude. And I'm back with you.
We're about to cut. We're about to just cut this recording short. This guy is so rude. All of a sudden,
just ignoring us.
All right. So, John, what do you think about searching for the right door / spectrum? I guess we just talk about spectrums. Searching for the right door is just like,
well, yeah, searching for the right door just sounds kind of like the equivalent of somebody was like noodling on a guitar and it wasn't that interesting.
It sounds like every drummer I've ever been in the studio with who's just always playing up until, and you have to be like, hey, stop playing. We're going to actually start the song now.
Yeah. So, I mean, that part's whatever, but and I definitely know that I've heard this song. I've at least listened this far because I know this. And this is one of those songs that I think is cool in the like would be cool to hear in the background.
Mhm.
Like I was definitely bopping along with it. It definitely had some like cool melodies. It had a cool feel to it. So I give it I give it a 4 because I mean there's definitely some like good playing. Um, well produced. Like I guess the flugelhorn, or I guess we thought we heard it. Was it? I don't know.
The
Whatever.
sax and
Yeah.
there's a sax solo and a flugelhorn.
Yeah,
Both are
but
good.
I mean, I just think that whenever the wind instruments were playing or the keys were playing, they were like well produced. I liked the sound on them and everything. There was like some recognizable melodies in there. It wasn't like a lot of times with jazz. I'm like, I can't follow this. I
Mhm.
mean, it was going from like bopping all over the place, but it definitely came back to like a melody, and it had a mood to it. So I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I think I'll give it a 4 as well. I like the feel of it. It seems like it could be right at home in the soundtrack of like some kind of crappy 70s movie you've never heard of or never really seen. You just see like, that dingy 70s film quality, people driving around in really cars that are way too big and very slow moving plot. But really cool music. And that's one of the things I notice about movies and watching movies and cartoons from the 70s and even the early 80s is not having that canned sort of soundtrack. It's always like, wow, like even this crappy movie just got a really cool live band together to record some really good music for it. The soundtracks were, I remember that like crappy like live action Spider-Man show from the 70s, and it had a great soundtrack. Just it was like, oh, this band with horns and everything just really putting out a great performance for what was an awful show. And yeah, I kind of feel like this would have been right at home in one of those shows. Just really good, laid back kind of tune with a good melody.
I like this one a lot. We're 2 for 2 so far, according to
Ooh.
the Simple Man. I like the main melody a lot. It didn't test my patience. It didn't go too far off for too long. Um, the bass was funky. I likes
Mm-hmm.
my funk.
Mm-hmm.
I love the guys talking at the end. I'm going to give it a 4.5.
4.5. All right. Excellent. Some pretty strong scores to start off this album.
Very
Yeah.
strong.
Now we're heading to the final track on the first side of the album. And this one is Anxiety / Taurian Matador. Is that kind of like Taurian Matador? That sounds like kind of redundant. Like Taurian, doesn't that mean like
bull.
of a bull?
Yeah. This is one of those bull matadors, not your normal matador.
Not your run of the mill generic matador.
That's your
Well, like
dog or
Mark
cat matador.
Mark Torian from the Bullet Boys.
I didn't consider that one.
I like that.
I like the idea of a cat matador.
That would be a tough job.
Yeah.
I mean, it's safe, but tough.
Safe, yeah. It probably ends better for the cat too.
Oh, no doubt.
All right, this is Anxiety and Taurian Matador. And its anxiety seems to be very similar to Searching for the Right Door. Impressive warm-up by Billy Cobham.
So that's what A means on this album, is Billy warming up.
Yeah,
See the letter A.
But I think that's one of the things I really liked about this album. It was like all these little vignettes breaking things up. It was kind of neat.
Yeah, it kind of gives you that loose feel. And he's not messing around this time.
No. Give me anxiety trying to learn how to play it. It's great drum sound, great stereo sound of the drums, and it's
Yeah.
I think you can hear people in the background on that too if you listen really carefully. Where's that matador?
Reminds me of Zappa.
Yeah.
About that melody.
And that must be Tommy, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Some of that groove.
There we go.
There we go. He's dueling. Yeah.
Speaking of anxiety, I'm already feeling anxiety the fact there's only a couple minutes left of this. Definitely going to leave you wanting more. I like the idea of just switching off just after a few bars rather than going, you know, like a minute or two of a solo. It keeps things really interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Jeez. Wow.
Man,
Oh, spectacular.
it covered a lot of ground in, you know, how long was that song?
What, like
Four-
4 minutes?
4.5 minutes. Yeah.
If you include the you know, that big drum intro, it's not even 5 minutes. Yeah, 4:45.
Wow.
Wow. Horian Matador. Whew. What do you think of that one, John?
I was blown away. I heard some stuff in there that's like kind of touched on some guitar stuff that you don't really hear until like I want to say you don't really hear it till the 80s.
He was doing what sounded to me like that.
Like he was doing like a hammer-on pull-off thing, and then like, you know, like hitting the whammy bar.
Well, yeah, and it sounded like he was doing that, and I don't know what you call it, but it's like doing like a hammer on like that, but then like muting. I know because our guy Dan that we know really well that we played in bands with used to do it all the time because he was God, he's such a great player, but he would you're basically drag your finger muting the strings from the bridge up the bridge, so you're creating all these harmonics as you're doing it, and then you're playing legato with your left hand, and it sounded like he was doing something like that, but that was like a kind of a trick in the 80s.
Well, that's what I'm talking about, is you don't really like, it was just hinted at, like, you know, when you hear people talking about people doing like tapping in the 70s, but it's not as extensive as like when Eddie Van Halen did it. But there was like, I don't know, a couple of bars, or like, you know, really quick, you know, they hinted at it. Like there were a couple of techniques in here on this jazz album, jazz solo, that like hinted at stuff that you probably wouldn't hear for like another 10 years is my guess.
Mhm.
which I think is pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
Um,
surprised if this album influenced more people than one might expect. I don't think it
mhm,
was insanely popular at the time, although I do think it did okay. But
mhm,
it's kind of that musician's kind of album, right? Like
mhm.
if you're playing an instrument, this might be something that you listen to even back
Yeah.
in the day. So yeah, that's pretty cool to see where maybe some of this stuff came from.
But again, like I mean, we were talking about there's a good kind of melody tying it together, and like we were talking about through the song, the trade offs between like the keyboard or synth and the guitar solo were like really kind of short and left you wanting more. You were just like, I was really looking forward to the back and forth, and like they were doing some really cool stuff. Um, and I got anxiety over the fact that it wasn't going too long.
Yeah,
Again,
because
I would
you
like that could have just gone. That's one of them that could have gone on. They could have done that for another 4 minutes, and I would have been like, yeah.
I'm trying to think of the
So
song on In Rock where like Richie and John Lord are exchanging like 1.5 minute solos for like it's like is it Flight of the Rat maybe?
Was it Speed King?
No, I want to say it's like Flight of the Rat, but it's like an 8 minute song and it's just like
Yeah,
he's
they
lit
did
and
Flight of the Rat too.
it's
Yeah,
also a lot of I mean it's probably the most of the album to be honest with you. But it's great hearing them do that, but when they're doing this really quick back and forth, like you take 4 bars, I take 4 bars, or whatever it was,
yeah.
yeah, exciting.
And also underneath that, if you listen to everybody playing together, like when Tommy would take his solo, Billy Cobham would like he would kind of amp up a little bit. He'd kind of get a little showy and do some stuff, but it wasn't taking away from
Hmm.
anything. It was just kind of like building on that energy. Like I don't know. I think it takes some really skilled musicians to do that and not like kind of outdo or distract from each other.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Um,
hard to do for everyone to be so busy, but yet
yeah,
you still know firmly where the focal point is supposed to be.
yeah. So yeah, 4.5 for me.
All right. Yeah, listening to this, I felt like I don't think it was intentional, but it almost sounds like Jan Hammer is doing everything he can to try to trick you into thinking he's a guitar, and Tommy's trying to do everything he can to trick you into thinking it's a synth. So
Mm,
you almost feel like you don't you know at a certain point, but there's points where you're just like I'm not 100% sure if this is the synth or the guitar, and this is really interesting. And yeah, I think for the melody of the song was great, the hook was great, and the way that they kept taking it back and trading off was great. I would also give it a 4.5.
Yeah, I have to say I'm enjoying this album more than I thought I would, only because,
mm,
like I said before, I don't necessarily listen to a lot of instrumental music these days, but this is like John, when you say you wanted more, that's the way to do it, right? Unlike
yeah.
all of this other jazz and fusion rock where it's like, oh, that was cool, but it sure is 15 minutes long. Like these guys are like,
That's
we're gonna give you just one cool thing after another, and then we're out. That's the way to do it.
mm-hmm.
And like you both said, that those kind of brief trade-offs were great. I was thinking that would be a really fun thing to watch live. I don't know. I don't think did they ever tour together as a band? You
They
guys know?
I don't believe so, and I think
I
because
don't think they did.
I think Leland Sklar was talking recently about how that was like one of his biggest regrets is that they never got a chance to tour this band
Oh wow. Because yeah,
together.
they would have been amazing to watch.
Oh yeah,
And yeah, the fact that they're all playing a lot of notes, let's face it. But like I said at the beginning, it sounds like a band. It sounds like they're actually listening to each other. So I like this one too. I got to give it a 4.5.
all
Woo.
right, man, this album's doing really well.
We're on fire, guys.
Yeah. I admit too, I didn't think I was gonna like it this much. I was like, oh, I'm probably gonna get bored because it's
Yeah, and
jazz.
I think if it was a if it was a it's a 37-minute album, which actually seems longer than it is because it goes by
Mm-hmm.
really quick. But
Mm-hmm.
if this had been done in the days of the CD and they stretched the same album out into being 55 minutes or whatever, it,
Oof.
it probably wouldn't hold up as well.
Yeah, it wouldn't have that impact, I don't think.
All right, so it is time to flip this record over and start with the first song on the second side, and that song is Stratus. Now this is
Well, this is a long one.
almost 10 minutes long.
Oh boy. See, now we're in trouble.
You jinxed it.
They got in and out quick on that first side. We'll see how this goes. It's funny that they would do like a lengthy instrumental sort of weird thing at the beginning of this and not have it be an A-B situation. Like, nope, this one's just one song. We're going to noodle around for a few minutes. That's part of this song. That's got to be fades from Tommy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like when like albums do kind of like atmospheric things like this, and
Yeah, I don't mind, especially when it's earned. Like, I think it is coming off those last few.
oh yeah, you just kind of ease into this second side here.
Yeah. You just blew your mind. We need to give you a break.
And I used to listen to this album a lot. This so far doesn't sound familiar.
That's crazy because it sounds like the keyboard or whatever is following what he's doing on the drums.
That's got to be like a Moog patch where he like
Yeah.
sequencing some sort of.
Or he's following what the patch is doing. Either way, it's pretty wild.
And look, it is a drummer's solo album, right? So we got to give him a little bit of this.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right?
And he's badass.
Uh-oh, R2-D2 is short-circuiting.
Just cranked up the reverb all of a sudden on the drums.
I'm surprised that was an A.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Shaft.
We love it.
I love that fill.
This is like the walking into the club song in that movie you were talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
This gives you the confidence to walk into the club.
Oh,
You
yeah.
mean it. You're gonna have a good night.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. This is the one that Leland Sklar did on his YouTube channel recently.
Oh, cool.
Nice.
It's a great bass line.
I can't tell if he's playing like,
Yeah.
sounds like almost like some sort of electric piano, like a Rhodes or something.
See, I like this because this song has a hook to it too. It's got that little melody line. Na 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 na.
Yeah, they throw.
Oh, there's Tommy. It's got that really cool bass line too.
And I like how Leland Sklar is such a great bass player, and he's got some awesome bass stuff going on this album, but he really did know his place too, or he just kind of sat back, and there's very little of the album where he's the focal point.
Yeah, he's the most laid back of the four, no doubt.
And this is Billy Cobham's first solo album, so like, wow, what a way to kick it off. God.
Yeah. I really like the slow build going on here.
And those kind of like discordant sort of patterns on the keys.
But listen to that rhythm section too. They're just locked in and holding it down.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the opposite of the previous song where you've got a huge solo section from Tommy, and I've got a feeling we're probably going to get a long Jan Hammer solo section too.
I'm not mad.
Nope.
See, now that right there, that's where you're like tricked into thinking like, is that Tommy or
yeah.
no? Like, I know it's not, but I mean, it almost mimics his guitar sound and like his playing a little bit, which is really cool.
Tommy's just doing such incredible playing and funk in the background there.
Oh yeah.
And this is pretty much like, aside from those little melody parts, this is just Lee Sklar's just doing this the whole time. I wonder if when they were in the studio, I bet some of these songs had to have gone off in 25 minutes.
Probably.
I wonder how they wrote these songs. Is it, did you already say, is it credited to the four of them, or?
It's credited as just Billy Cobham.
It is. Huh.
So, as songwriter on all the songs.
Really?
So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of solos and stuff going on, but I wonder if he just came in with the kind of basic structure and those cool little hooks and melodies, and everyone else just went to town.
Yeah. To me, that's kind of what makes it, is those great hooks. I mean, you know these guys are going to play well, but...
It's a rare fade out, huh?
Hmm. Well, like you said, maybe could have, for all we know, they could have gone for another 20 minutes.
Yeah, that whole thing could have been just the middle section of a long jam. Who knows?
Right.
Wow.
Wild stuff.
All right.
It's like really good. Really like such a laid back album though. Like just really like this chill vibe to the whole album.
Yeah, it's a great one. Great one to have on in the background, and just kind of just takes you away to a different place. It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, Stratus. John, what do you say about Stratus?
I thought it was. I loved. I'm just loving the playing and all this on the whole album. I thought that even though it was really, what it caught me off guard, or like I started to think about is like the bass line was like really simple, and then it just kind of made me think about yeah, and it's another one. It had a hook that the song went back to, and it's like for such kind of like I guess like really great musicians, it's kind of odd how actually like accessible the album sounds. Almost like I'm sure that like the music to play is not simple at all, but I mean it does sound really accessible, more accessible than I thought it would be. Um, Although it wasn't the length of this one, but it wasn't my favorite Tommy solo so far. Not that it was bad by any means, but I liked his stuff on the prior three songs a little bit better. Although his worst stuff is still going to be better than a lot of people's best stuff, as I often say. But let me see. How come I can't get into the thing here? Oh, there we go. I'm going to go with the 3.5 for this one. It was good, but it didn't aside from like the bass and like the solo, the being the standout, the solos were like really good, but it's like just I think just kind of good average.
I was thinking the same. We're locking up pretty close on this.
Shit, I was thinking the same too. Not to interrupt, but I literally that's the number I had in my mind. So
Yeah,
there you go. I mean, I think it's a song that I think that hook that that was so awesome. I felt like they could have maybe come back to it a little bit more and shortened it up a little. But that being said, it's a great groove, great song, great way to kind of ease into the second side of the album. Digging it.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm going 3.5 as well. The bass line is the best part of the song for me.
Yeah.
I don't mind that sort of first 2 minutes or so, the ambiance, but maybe it wasn't best to do that on this song that stretches out longer than anything on the first side. And so I don't know. It did go on a little too long for me, but once again, they all sound amazing. I like this. I like what we're hearing a lot, just not quite as much as the first few. So I'm going to go 3.5.
Yeah, I think we all kind of locked into something on this song. Is that if it was brought back to the main melody or hook and maybe slowed down, not slowed down, shortened a little bit, it would have matched the first few songs a little bit better. So this one might have like lost a little bit of focus. And that's why we were didn't rate it as high.
I think you made a great point, John. You used the word accessible, which is not something you would often associate with fusion, right?
Yeah.
But it kind of is. I could see a lot of people who maybe aren't into jazz or don't really care too much about, the specifics of who's playing what or, how great a musician is technically. But I could see a lot of people locking into some of these melodies overall on the album, that bass line. That's just sort of undeniable.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah.
All right. Next up, we have To the Women in My Life, which is an unaccompanied. This is the only song that Cobham's not on, well, section of a song, I guess. It's just a Jan Hammer playing unaccompanied piece, and then it goes into Le Lit. So here we go. It's kind of a really beautiful little piano piece there.
It is really nice.
Oh, and here's the upright bass, the acoustic bass.
Let's get funky again.
Yeah,
Nice.
right. Billy Cobham has another great album called The Funky Thide of Sings.
Really? I don't know.
Yeah.
That.
I bought it just because of the title.
Yeah.
Oh, this is really good. And this, so Leland Sklar's not on this one. Tommy's not on this one.
Oh.
So this is the song that has John Tropia on the guitar. John Tropia played guitar for Van Morrison, it looks like,
Oh.
amongst some other, many other people.
I really like this part. I like that little hook.
Interesting note that I just discovered about John Tropia.
Mm-hmm.
He so he played guitar. He played guitar with Fandango, who was
Nick Semper's.
no, not Nick Simper's Fandango, but Joe Lynn Turner's Fandango.
Oh.
So the famous two bands named Fandango from Deep Purple people. So there's another connection here, which is he played with he played on a couple of tracks at least on one of their albums with Joe Lynn Turner on vocals. So interesting. All right.
This song is just making me think that like from the piano intro to like I guess like again, the great bass groove and everything, it makes me think of like if you were like in the 70s, right? And you walk into like this lounge and it's like the lights are all red and there are like scarves draped over the lamps and everything like that. And you got a guy with like, big sunglasses and a mustache coming down like this, walking through, and he's like, like that's what this album is making.
You're talking about a whorehouse. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, this is
a special kind of club.
Yeah,
so
gentlemen
basically
only.
I'm saying this is a whorehouse album. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're on the same page.
No, but it's definitely, it gives me that mood. Like I'm thinking of these, like, and they're off the top of my head, I can't think of them, but you hit on it, Nate. Just like these, like soundtracks to like these 70s movies or cartoons or whatever, and you get that like whatever the visual is that you get of your head in it, it's like you're brought to that period of time, which I think is really cool. I mean, back then they probably were like, oh, this will make people think of now in 40 years or whatever.
Yeah, they were just making music, but really something about the production of it too just captures that essence.
Yeah, I feel like it captures the period in which it was made. That being said, like, this song again, I think is another 3.5 for me. I don't think that it's as remarkable as the first 3 songs. I think it's kind of winding down a little bit. Even though there are elements in it that I like. I like the mood. I like the bass. I like that little na na na. I like that melody in there. But the solos were a little bit lacking for me. Because I always like the up tempo stuff too the best. So this one was just kind of average, I thought.
Yeah, I'd give it a 3.5 too. I really like the vibe of it, and the feeling of the song is great. But yeah, it doesn't maybe necessarily stand out as some of the other ones where they're going so full throttle. But I do like I like when the kind of in the middle of the album kind of bringing it down and having a more chill moment, and the last song kind of blends the two in my mind. But
yeah, for me this one lost me a little bit. I didn't dislike it, but to me we're kind of getting to that sort of smooth jazz territory that I despise. I'm not saying it's all the way there.
No,
we're getting a little bit close to that sort of, J.C. Penney, Castor Knot music. One of those malls, John, you were talking about.
Yeah, one of the many malls.
Maybe you'd hear this, and maybe I just missed your boy Tommy on this, but it just felt a little too meandering for me, a little too smooth. So I'm going to go 2.5 on this one.
All right. Okay. Me and John are locked
I just
up.
want to disagree with you guys for once.
I mean, we've been pretty close the whole time. And I can't remember the last time me and John were locked up 100%. So we'll see.
I know.
The final.
This is more interesting. A little dissension in the ranks. Boo.
Right. Just trying to argue with you guys.
So the last final track on this album on side 2, Snoopy's Search and the Red Baron. So here we go. And the Snoopy Search is like a very really taking the moog out for a spin here. Sounds more like the adults talking than Snoopy.
It does.
It's just
we've gone from hot for teacher to okay computer by the end of the album.
It's extra funny hearing that, knowing what the song turns into.
Yeah,
the furthest thing from that. Like somebody walking down a hallway in wooden clogs or something.
This should have been, what was it, looking for the right door, or what was it?
Here we go. Firmly into the Red Baron here. This is the one I always remember you liking, John.
Oh, okay, so maybe I did the whole album. I'm such a dumbass.
Must have been all those psychotropic drugs you were doing at the time.
Yeah, all those none of the drugs I ever did. Oh, I hear Tommy in the background there a little bit. Nice dissonant.
Now the part where they do this little off time thing in perfect unison is so incredible. Listen. Like
Wild.
him and Jan are doing that same thing while Billy Cobham is doing nothing to help them out. he's all over the place, and they're somehow keeping that weird little off time thing together.
Oh yeah.
We talk about this a lot, but you just don't hear dynamics like this in recorded music, popular released recorded music anymore. It's
So true. It's a shame.
I mean, you can just hear him just barely touching those strings and getting quiet.
All compressed out these days.
I remember we went to go see. Remember Monster Mike Welch,
Oh yeah.
famous guitar prodigy. He was probably like 13 when we went to go see him.
Yep.
I remember at one point he got up on like our table and was playing the guitar, and he was using such dynamics you could actually hear the pick hitting his strings more than you could hear it coming out of the amps behind him. And just that leaving such a lasting impression on me, even though I was way older than that little shit. He was so much better than any of us.
Yeah, I remember that kid.
But just being able to do that, he's probably like a few years younger than us, but
I remember that man.
what he's up to these days, he's amazing.
Ooh, I like that. The bass was vroom, vroom.
Yeah.
Had a couple of crazy ass slides going on. Oh, see, the bass is doing a little something different now.
I think it's this time that Billy Cobham throws in the crazy drums in the background. How do they hold that together?
Wow.
They're all good. Love that dissonant chord. Oh, false ending.
Sorry, not going to end the album for you.
They
yet.
got us again.
We love a good false ending.
Oh, it's the traditional Tommy Bolin slide. This is the longest he's ever waited in an album to bring that. It's usually the first thing he does on an album.
He did it twice there. Oh, he did it 3 times.
He's making up for lost time here.
I love it though. They're introducing a new sound on the way out,
Yeah.
keeping it fresh all the way through, right?
And look, he's just playing like a couple of notes. He's not doing anything groundbreaking or
No, he's just
crazy. He's just
finding
like
these new little melodies and patterns and working them in.
like you said, Nate, the dynamics too, just really kind of playing it soft. Nice.
Wow. So Snoopy Search and the Red Baron, or Red Baron.
Which sounded nothing like Peanuts.
Yeah, Snoopy Search does a very bad job of warming you up for Red Baron. Before we go into the ratings, I gotta say, Monster Mike Welsh is 41, so he seemed so much younger than us at the time. But I guess when you're in your mid-teens or whatever, a few years makes all the difference.
Matters, yeah.
Remember, I'm looking at a picture of him now. He's got a big beard. But wow, what an amazing player he was at that young age. Whenever we saw him, 13, 14, however old he was.
I'm sure he kicks immense ass these days.
Oh, he was so good.
Oh, yeah. So, I guess when you're like 17 or 18 and you got some kid that's like 14 or 15, that seems like way younger.
Yeah, you were like, who is this kid?
But, wow. Exactly. Now you're like, 40 or 49 and you're like, nah, we're the same age.
Yeah, now essentially we're the same age. But back then he was like, look at this little shit. He's too good. So I'm so mad at this kid.
Still, all these years later, you're still mad at him.
I'm still mad at that kid jumping up on our table and being so much better than us.
Stepping in our egg rolls.
Yeah, it was a great show. Yeah, my hometown, this place Chan's restaurant, and they did like jazz and egg rolls. That was their thing. They would have jazz acts come through, or in this case a blues act. And they'd had this small room. I mean, how many people fit in that room? Probably less than 100.
Yeah, it couldn't have been any more than that.
And you just sit there and it was like dinner theater you'd see in the movies where they, sitting there and eating your dinner and
some egg rolls
and watch some awesome jazz and watch this guy get up and almost knock over your scorpion bowl as he's belting out an amazing solo.
That's a great combo.
Pretty wild, yeah.
Yeah. So. Anyway. Snoopy Search Red Baron.
We digress.
We always do.
Yeah.
What do you think, John?
I'm gonna be like you now. I'm struggling with this one.
You're struggling.
You often say no. You know why? Because it's like it was good. I heard so many cool things in it. But one of the bass I heard was starting to do some crazy stuff in the background.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing some cool stuff, and Tommy's dynamics were like great in the song. It's what? It's just like I think the last three songs, what they, I guess you could say, suffered from a little bit is just being a little bit too long. Mm-hmm. And they weren't really that long, because this was really like, I can't believe the album's already over, because it didn't feel like it was like this long dragged out listen. But it's like, I feel like if this song and the other two on this side were a little bit shorter, I would have probably liked them better. So that being said, I'm going with another 3.5, just for that.
All right. Well, I think this is where we're going to stray, my friend, because I'm giving this one a 5.
Oh,
wow.
We really strayed. Yeah.
When I think of this album, this is the song I know, right? Didn't see that one coming. But this is the song I always think of when I think of this album. That and then that little off time thing. It's just like
that was really cool.
Amazing.
I just love that part of the album. I think it's a great tune. It's really kind of this laid back, like kind of just driving down the street in your 1971 Cadillac or whatever, just looking for Huggy Bear or what have you. Yeah, this has always been a standout for me, so that's my ranking.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to differ with you, Nate, as much as I love you. I do like it. Again, this whole album worked for me more than I thought it would. It's held up better than I expected it to. And if for nothing else, just to listen to like these four amazing musicians play, that's a joy to hear. I don't think anyone's going to say, I love the songs, but these players just aren't quite up to, the level I need them to be. And also want to say, one of the things I admire about this album is that they didn't fall into that trap of naming the songs just ridiculous titles, which you see a lot in fusion. I think there's just too much room, too much space when there's no lyrics, right? So then you come up with some ridiculous, stupid title, and that didn't happen until this song, which apparently has something to do with Snoopy. That doesn't work for me. I think that's a great title. That's just my personal preference.
Yeah.
You got these badass musicians, and it's called like Snoopy's Paradise or whatever it was called.
And then they keep it going with the Red Baron.
With the Red Baron, yeah,
it's kind of funny, yeah.
I don't know. It just sounds a little too silly for me.
Yeah.
But I do like the song. I kind of agree with John that it went on a little too long. I think what I've learned today is that I need to get this vinyl, and I'm going to listen to side A over and over and over again, and then every now and then I'll flip it over and listen to the side B because it's cool, it's good. But man, that first side was great. So I'm going to give this one I'm going to give it a 3.
All right.
I think that was a fair assessment of this album, how I feel about it. It's like side 1 is like fire. And then side 2 is like, yeah, I listen to it every so often because it's overall, it's really, it's a great effort. It's not a bad album. Like these last songs were not bad by any stretch of the imagination.
Exactly.
So,
but just not up to that first side really. Like every minute of that worked for me.
Yeah, first side's pretty incredible.
Heck yeah. So yeah. So Nate, you want to did you arrange the rankings by any chance?
Yep. If we go to the album sheet, it should show you where we stand.
Whoops. Sorry, I was in songs. I'm like, what is all this garbage?
All right. So Billy Cobham Spectrum, where does it stack up, John?
All right. Well, it's still at the bottom. Did you sort it by combined ratings?
Can't be at the bottom.
Well, I mean, it's at the bottom, meaning like the last one that we ranked, but you didn't.
Yeah,
sort.
if you look at,
can I sort it?
No, if you go to the albums tab, it should be at it should be the last one. Yep. Oh, you want to sort? Oh, I see. I'm sorry. You wanted to sort it by rankings. Sorry.
Wait, no, I can
you
do
did
it.
You got it.
Look, I can do it. Yeah. So, I lost it. All right, here it is. All right, so it got a combined rating of 8.25. But that's between me and Nate. That's how we do our ratings here. But let's see how the three of us rated the album.
Because if we had the guest host in, then it'll blow everything out of the water with all those extra points.
But let's see. So my rating was an even 4. Nate's was a 4.25. So you liked it slightly better. The simple man liked it the least, 3.83.
Still, that's high ratings across the board, right?
Yes.
Yeah, respectable.
Yes. So the albums that it falls in with, let's see. So Spectrum. So a couple above it, North Winds, Machine Head, Medusa, Spectrum, Butterfly Ball, Burn, Green Bullfrog, Come Taste the Band. So these are all.
It's in good company.
Yes, very, very similarly rated. So it's actually it's the same rating as Medusa.
And if you factor in the Simple Man's rating, it is our highest rated guest host review.
Yes.
Oh,
yes, actually that is true.
Yep.
Nice.
So let's see. Hang on, I'm gonna do that really quick and take a look.
There you go.
Oh, what did I do? There we go.
He's sorting spreadsheets, folks. We're not prepared for this.
Yeah. No,
so much
it's like
math.
I got a new toy. Oh yeah. So this one for our guests. Now that we've had a few, this one came in first with our guest host rankings. Dawn Explosion by Captain Beyond is number 2. Coverdale Page, number 3, and Difficult to Cure is number 4 with combined ratings.
There you go. Not too bad.
You guys feel like it's worthy of the top spot out of those four?
You know, I think maybe. I'm kind of surprised that Captain Beyond wasn't a little higher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to throw on it, if I had to pick out of those four albums to throw one on, it would be this one.
Oh, nice. It's a great one.
Yeah, I mean, overall, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and like Coverdale page, we did a
that was a whopper of an episode.
the episode that broke the show.
Oh.
I had to ask everyone on Twitter, like, hey, should we do 2 episodes for some of these long albums? And we weren't really ready for this. Our first really album of the CD era. And you just forget how long some of these damn albums are. 60 minutes long.
Like
it's just
like the actual recording time, I think, was like 3 hours. Like, we were exhausted afterwards. I'm like, I didn't think I could be that exhausted from like sitting around and talking.
I know. I feel like I need to take a week off after that episode.
I was like, I texted him the next day. I'm like, I'm still tired. He's like, me too. I'm spent. Like, what did we just do to ourselves?
Oh man,
a long way to go.
But anyways, yeah, this so final thoughts from everybody on this album. Everybody. Well, did I say anybody or everybody?
He said everybody.
Do we all go at the same time? 1, 2, 3, and we'll all talk.
I mean,
keep it together. It's like the end of Red Baron.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I've always really had a soft spot for this one, and it's something that I listened to a ton when I first got it in the mid-90s. And periodically I'll put it on here and there. But now I'm kind of just reminded of what I really liked about this album. It's just pure musicianship. There's some great hooks and some great basic songwriting, but it's really just about how amazing these musicians were and how well they played together that makes the album just shine. And I can see why it made a splash. And like Simple Man said, it's kind of like a musician's album. Like, musicians will love this album, and whether you're, no matter what instrument you play, there's gonna be something on this for you. It's great.
Yeah, for me, I was thinking earlier, my favorite thing is when you love an album but you kind of forget about it for a while for whatever reason, and then you go back to it and it holds up, and so it feels kind of new but it's still familiar. That's like my sweet spot. I love that. It's exciting, and that's what I felt listening to this today. It's especially that first side. It really still works for me, and I mean, it's cool when great musicians can get together. And let's face it, they were showing off, but in the right way, right?
Right. Yep.
I mean, I want them to show. I want to hear what these guys can do. There's a reason you go to an album like this, is because you want to hear some of the best musicians in the world, but you don't want to hear it when there's no interest in putting together a decent song or a decent melody, and that's not what you get here. They've got some good hooks and some great playing, and I remember why I liked it, and I'm sure I'm going to listen to it a lot more in the next couple weeks. For sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just go back to what I was saying when we were listening to it was, it's just a really great, I think, overall accessible album. Like, if you wanted to say to somebody, how do you want to, what I listen to if I wanted to get into jazz that's not too intimidating, like even side 2, I think is like still highly listenable for somebody that's, wouldn't be like, it wouldn't scare anybody off. Like, there's a lot of cool stuff in there, and I think that anybody that likes Deep Purple would like this as well. And I mean, you could tell, Tommy Bolin playing with this well at his age and with such, accomplished musicians and everything. I mean, it's not hard to believe that he would fit in with such amazing musicians as John Lord and Ian Paice and, the other guys, like, it's, you hear this and you're just like, yeah, totally. Because those guys like Deep Purple, they don't get that this kind of recognition because it's not jazz, or it's not, you know what I mean? It's not like musicians' music. I mean, it is for rock fans, but even then, rock doesn't always get the respect that it should. Although I feel like Deep Purple is kind of one of the higher tier rock bands. Like if you're going to respect a rock band, then you would respect Deep Purple because of the musicianship. So, yeah, again, not hard to see why Coverdale or anybody would have listened to this album and be like, I want that guy, because his appearance on it was kind of brief, but very effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so a lot of great hooks, melodies, songs. First side, awesome.
All right. Well, there you have it. That's Billy Cobham's Spectrum album. An amazing, not only amazing for the Tommy Bolin connection and everyone else, but wow, what a way to kick off a solo career. And, you know,
Yeah.
I've listened to a few of his others, like he's got Shabazz and then the Funky Thide of Sings that I mentioned earlier. I haven't listened to tons of others, but God, does this guy have a lot of albums. So it's one of those things I've always kind of wanted to go out of my way to listen to a few more of his albums, because he always does bring something really interesting to it. So and that's that. Simple Man, want to thank you once again for joining us. Thank you so much. And where can people find you on social media or your podcast or what have you?
Yeah, I'm on, all the normal places, your Apple Podcasts. The show's called Skinnered Reconsidered. Reconsidered is, this was a mistake from the beginning, but Skinnered is spelled like Skinnered, right? If you know how to spell that with the Y's and all that. So Skinnered, and then Reconsidered is spelled RECONSYDYRD.
Oh boy.
I think it's hard to say out loud.
If you know how to spell Skinnered, you can figure out how to spell Reconsidered.
Yeah, just put some Y's in Reconsidered. It's very clever, and it's terrible marketing. But
well, hey, we named our show the Deep Purple Podcast, so it's opposite ends of the spectrum. Super clever, completely no thought put into it.
You're so much smarter though. And yeah, I'm on and look up Skinnered Reconsidered on Twitter, Instagram. And yeah, seriously, thank you guys for having me on. I do love the show, and I just like talking to you guys. I was just thinking, you guys are like the spectrum of podcasts, right?
Oh.
You're very knowledgeable and smart and clever, but you approach everything in a down-to-earth, accessible, likable manner. And that's why you guys are killing it. And thanks for having me on.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you for the
It was a pleasure.
Words.
Yeah, thank you.
Certainly would love to have you on again whenever we find anyone that we love chatting with, and then find out there's any sort of even tenuous connection between anything Deep Purple related. Well, I'll get them on for an episode.
I love it.
Completely selfish reason. That's the great thing about not being beholden to any advertisers or anybody other than yourself. It's just the only reason we do this is to have fun. And what better thing to do than talk to some of our good friends. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. And we will see you all next week. Thank you for listening to the Deep Purple Podcast. If you like what you hear and would like more episodes in the future, please donate on Patreon to support the show. You can also give us a rating on iTunes to help new people discover the show. You can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook for show updates. See deeppurplepodcast.com for more details. Thank you for listening.